Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Saint Thomas Aquinas. I hope you have eaten something. Very quick, I can imagine. I'm sorry for this vegetative perturbation. As it's just here, so, well. It's the base. Nevertheless, it's here, but it's the base. If that is not in good shape, the base of the triangle doesn't work. Nevertheless, if you remove everything here, you're still a triangle. The essential part of yourself is intelligence and will. So now let's maybe come back on temptation, just to see that Jesus himself wanted to be tempted. He was laid up, as you can see in Matthew chapter 4. Jesus was laid up by the Spirit into the wilderness. There's a problem. Un, deux. Doesn't seem. Maybe if you can find Alexander, that's probably the best. So Jesus was led to the desert by the Spirit. He fasted 40 days, and the tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God," 3 temptations. Again, we are going to see the flesh, the vanity, the pride. "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Temptation of the flesh, not in a... the flesh has the power, the desire to control. Do something great. If you are what you claim to be, do something great. Just notice that each temptation starts with this sentence, "if you are." I like in the movie of Mel Gibson, maybe The Passion, this aspect of the movie, the fight between Jesus and the devil, is well done. And the first temptation, when the movie starts with the temptation of Jesus in the agony, "Are you? If you are," he starts like that. Who are you? Who is your Father? If you remember. That is the root of temptation. To doubt, to have doubts about who you are. As I told you during the celebration, you are sons and daughters of the Lord. If you start doubting that, you enter in temptation. If you are, each temptation starts with that. Who am I? What is my true self? Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him in the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you." And you know that Jesus answers, again with the gospel, with the Bible, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test." All the kids today, they want to be on stage. He placed him on the pinnacle of the temple. People, they want to be on stage. They want to be a star. They want to live out of appearances, to look good instead of being good. Same thing. If you are, the devil wanted to see if Jesus was really God or not. So he tried all the tricks he knew with normal human beings, and Jesus escaped. So he understood, this is not just a human being, he's also God. He's my enemy. From this time he knew that Jesus was his personal enemy. He will break your head and you will have his heel. Again, the devil took him to the very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor, and he said to him, all these I will give you if you fall down and worship me. Third temptation, to have instead of to be. You will have everything you want. Money, kingdom, everything, having. We recognize very well our temptations. Being on top, being up, having, being powerful. This is exactly what Jesus doesn't want. He wants to be the servant. He wants to be down. He wants to help. He wants to be the lamb, not the lion. Now I would like to see here, everybody can relate. You say, well, I know these temptations perfectly. I know what you are talking about because you were talking about me from this morning. I know that. And now I'm not talking about you, I hope. We are going to see the famous case of possession. Here you have very rare attacks. Normally we are not attacked this way. But it can happen, and we make a great deal of it. Movies and the exorcist and all this stuff. So at least it's good sometimes at least to speak about it and to have clear ideas about what is a possession. We could... It's starting, you see it's starting. Each time you start speaking about... Always. He loves microphones. So you have different degrees of attacks coming from the devil. You have the first degree, what we can call obsession. In obsession, I will put vexations, infestation. We can use different expression. Expression is not a degree, it's just possession after. I will take a very simple image to help you to understand the difference. When the enemies attack a city, Troy for instance, you have two ways to attack the city. You surround the city, or you go into. In Troy, they send a wrong horse, and they were in the city. I would say that's the same thing. The devil sometimes surrounds your soul. You're surrounded. So for some reason you're attacked, you're under attack. We call obsession. But it's not a possession. The enemy is not into. Possession is really the enemy possessed your soul to the point that he controls your body. Let's see examples in the Bible to say that where does that come from, this doctrine. You have first, for instance, Job. Job is a good man. He will have not exactly obsession. Obsession is sometimes someone, for instance, led to suicide. For some reason, he has obsessions about suicide or about killing someone or about doing something really bad. And his mind is like he cannot think to other things, he's just obsessed. It could be psychological. We are going to see later what are the different signs of a possession. It can be just psychological, but it can be also a demoniac attack. And sometimes we speak about vexation, when you have someone holy and is a good man, but he's slapped by the devil. Vexation. He hates you because you're holy, so he does all the kind of tricks he can do with you. Not from within, because you're a holy man, there is no open door for him, but he destroys your family, he destroys your money, he destroys everything around, and you wonder what happens to you. It's the case of Job in the Bible. The beginning of the book of Job, chapter 1, is very strange. One day, the heavenly beings, strange expression, heavenly beings, came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From going to and fro on the earth." That is what he's doing. He's, just hanging around. And from walking up and down on it. Just having a walk. And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil." Then Satan answered the Lord, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not put a fence around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand now and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face." See, let's make a deal. Let's put Job to the test. And the Lord said to Satan, here it's very symbolical meaning, but for some reason, the Lord continues to allow Satan to act. For some reason, he knows that sometimes it's good for all way of sanctification. Here, I'm not going to deal with this question. It's the permission of evil in the world. Very mysterious point of doctrine. But it is a fact that here the Lord will let the devil act until a certain point. Only do not stretch out your hand against him. So you can't kill him. I think the devil has no power to kill anybody. Otherwise we would be already all dead. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. And one day, when his son and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the eldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were ploughing and the donkeys were feeding beside them, and the Sabaeans fell on them and carried them off and killed the servants with the edge of the sword. I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another came and said, "The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. I alone have escaped and tell you." While he was still speaking, another came and said, "The Chaldean formed 3 columns, made a raid on the camels, and carried them off and killed the servants," and so on. It's a long tragedy. Sometimes you see in your life, first wave, second wave, third wave, and you say, where does it come from? It could be a clue that you are really under attack. And at this moment we call about vexation. For some reason, the devil hates you, usually because you're a holy person, and he will try to destroy. I saw kids in Africa. We were running a school. You had a guy, he's the best kid, and one day he's blocked. He goes to an exam and he loses every exam. And he was the best, he was the most brilliant student always. And maybe he had someone in his family who was jealous, and for some reason he started losing everything. And here you feel that it's not just psychological, it's not just he has something. It could happen, some people really blocked. And there is a moment the devil tries to destroy. It's not the usual thing. Again, I'm speaking about things which are pretty rare. So don't immediately think, "Oh, that's it, I told you." No, not necessarily. But we must check out, it exists, it's revealed in the Bible, so we can say, "Oh, it's just crazy things." No, the Bible reveals it, so that makes sense. Now, the possession, you not only surrounded the place. Infestation is more for the houses. At this moment we say there is infestation. I know a couple, for instance, it's terrible, she's possessed and she's a good person. For some reason, she's really under attack. I wouldn't say possessed, but really vexations over vexations. From the time they're married, each time he comes home with flowers, they, how do you say, Fanny? With this quasi 15 minutes after. he bring wine to home, it becomes vinegar immediately. His house is a hell. There is something very heavy and they try many exorcists, and for some reason nobody can help them. And all of the exorcists say, There is no doubt you are under attacks. But that doesn't work. We're going to see that maybe if you have seen the movie Emily Rose. I don't know, it's not necessarily a good movie to see, but it's not bad. I saw it because I had to see what it is. It's not really, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting to see at the end, it leads you more to believe that could exist. At the end, you feel like the jury. You can decide that's just a dream, or you can decide it's true. You have to take the decision. It's not a kind of scary movie, just pretty well done. But I'm not going advertisement for this movie. But you have this woman who is possessed, and she cannot be healed because for some reason her possession can help the world. I had a neighbor in Paris, neighbor from my parents, a woman who, she was really a holy woman, and she was really a mystic. She didn't eat and drink like Martha Robin, if you know Martha Robin. I knew this person, and she didn't eat and drink during 30 years. And I came to meet her the first time, and I said, I heard about you. Would you mind? I'm a priest. If I come, if I pray with you, and I came, and she said, yeah, last week Father Marie-Dominique Philippe came to see me and to celebrate Mass here. So it's the founder of my committee. She said, so you know each other, and and actually she was always exorcised by the exorcist of Paris, who couldn't do anything for her. Each time he exorcised her, she had a relief for a couple of weeks, but her mission was to carry this pain of being not possessed, but at least under infestation and vexation always. Very holy person. So it can happen, but it's really rare, and you don't have to ask for this grace. Now, so you won't. Now, what is a possession? Possession is really when the devil is into the place. We have a revelation of possession in the Bible, in the Gospel of John, when Jesus had his Last Supper with the disciples. In chapter 13, I read the text. After saying this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and declared, "Very truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." At this moment, Judas had already the pieces of silver, 30 pieces of silver in his pocket. The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he was speaking. One of his disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him, John. Simon Peter, therefore, motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So while reclining next to Jesus, he asked, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus answered, "It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." So when he had dipped the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, son of Simon Iscariot. The piece of bread is not the Eucharist. It's a tradition for the Jews, a sign of friendship. I take a piece of bread, I put it in the sauce, and I give it to you, a sign of friendship. Are you my friend or not? He received the piece of bread, which is lying, which is saying, yes, I'm your friend, while he wants to kill him. And at this moment, Satan entered into him. So we have here the revelation in the gospel that there is a possession. Satan entered into him. He was already a bad guy, he was already lying, he was already stealing the money, but he wasn't possessed. Again, possession is pretty rare. Jesus said to him, "Do quickly what you have to do." And when he left, John has this mention. So after receiving the piece of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. Actually, in Greek, you can translate in both ways. You can say it was night, or he was night, because you don't have the subject in Greek. You have he was night, or it was night. There was night. So it could be also Judas. He was darkness. And this is the revelation of a possession. Now, the effects are usually that you're obsessed in your imagination. The devil cannot touch that. The devil cannot touch your intelligence. He cannot touch your will. You're still free. You're never possessed to the point that now you're in hell. There is no way for you. That's the reason why someone who is possessed can come and see an exorcist. Because he is still free. This place is only for you and God. That's the reason why you have to take care of this place. When you drink to the point that your imagination and your passion are totally overwhelming, you can't think anymore, you can't desire anymore something, you destroy the temple. That's the reason why, for instance, heavy drinking is something bad. It's because you lose your awareness. And this is the sacred temple where you decide to do something or not. So you have to always be very, very careful to preserve the holy place of God in your soul, your will, and your intelligence. But now, the devil can work on your imagination, as I told you. He can work on your passions, and he can work on your body. And in a possession, in a certain sense, your imagination, your memory, your passions, and your body belongs to him. We can see that in Matthew. After they had gone away, a demoniac who was mute was brought to him. And when the demon had been cast out, the one who had been mute spoke. Jesus does a miracle, he was possessed, Jesus cast out the devil, and now he could speak. That means that before, he couldn't speak because of the devil. You see, the devil can take your body to the point that you don't control your body anymore. Or he can take your imagination to the point that it becomes crazy. You have nightmares. I saw a lot of people in Africa having nightmares every night. And at the beginning you say it's just psychological, but after a while, when it's nightmares plus obsession plus the desire to curse, when they see the Eucharist, you say, maybe it's not just psychological. You just ask the question at least. So this is the two things. Now I would like to express what are the causes. I did this distinction between obsession and possession. At least let's say something about the different causes and the different signs, in case you have it. Just kidding. So what are the different causes? You have, say, causes or nothing to do with the animals like cows. I have always a problem. I say always the cows. And people say, what do you mean by the cows? It's the cause, the reasons. I try. I had the training. Nobody can. So let's come back. First, you can have the satanic pact. Like in the third temptation of Jesus, the devil says to Jesus, let's make a deal. You worship me, I'll give you everything. This is a pact. You have plenty of people today, unfortunately, who did that. Because we spread, with I'm nothing against Harry Potter and things like that, but progressively that leads to a culture of magic. Let's try to do a pact. Let's try to be powerful and to do little things in order. Now, if tonight you go back home and you say, Satan, if you exist, I want to have a pact with you. You will have it. No worry. If you want a pact, you will have a pact. At this moment, the deal is this one. Give me your soul, I give you the money, I give you the pleasure, I give you the power. But now you belong to me. So you have this person, crazy people, I guess, who decided to have kind of liturgy, because usually this pact will imply the renunciation to your baptism. Progressively will lead you to renounce to your baptism, to your faith, especially the faith in the Eucharist. So to see if you really belong to him, you will have to steal a host during the Mass and to bring it to have a black mass, something like that, or to curse the Eucharist. Kind of vows, different marks. It's exactly a caricature of the sacraments. God has his liturgy, the devil wants to have his liturgy. God has his priest, the devil wants to have his priest. There is a band like that, a rock band, called Judas Priest. It's the kind of you have your priest. The devil wants exactly to do a caricature of God. So at this moment, the consequences are magic powers, yes, but slavery. And sooner or later, you will feel big pain in the stomach. Another reason is not at this moment the pact with him, but to be bewitched. Nothing to do with the movie, and it's not nice at all. Here, this is the action of someone else, which is the cause. And I can say that when I arrived in Africa, I laughed at it. So come on, give me a break with that. After 9 years in Africa, I don't laugh at it anymore. I remember first I was laughing at some story, because they have the naive way maybe to say the story. They say that the uncle became a mosquito, and sometimes no. But one day I was laughing in front of a bishop, a friend of us. I was just arriving in Cameroon. It had been 1 month that I was arriving. I met the bishop, and while we were eating, people were speaking about this kind of story, transformation of someone in a mosquito. And so I was just laughing, and the bishop interrupted me immediately. He said, "If you do that, go back, friends. We don't need you." Woo! Say, well, I will have to learn the culture. And it was a very, very good correction that like a father can have. Because he had spent all his life in Cameroon. So you come after 1 month and you start laughing as a little French, and the bishop told you, "Hey, I'm a white too, but I know this culture better than you, and I can tell you that you're not going to laugh a long time with this kind of stuff." So actually, after a couple of years, I didn't laugh at all. Because this kind of spell are working, And normally it implies an open door. If you're in a state of grace and your life is a normal life as a Christian, you won't receive, you won't be bewitched. But many people are in a state of mortal sin, or at least they don't pay attention to all the open doors, and at this moment they can be easily the prey of a curse. Another cause, or reason, let's say reason now, the frequentation of malefic people, or malefic places, or things. Here it's pretty important to say that some people can be infested because of spiritism. A lot of youth today try to play, "Oh, spirit, are you here or not?" 1 knock for yes, 2 knocks for no. And they start having letters moving on the table. I'm sure plenty of you had this experience, because it's so common that people say, "Oh yeah, I play on that. My sister played on that in a cemetery, on a tomb. She started calling the spirits. Spirits, are you here?" And he was here. So they got scared and they left. Because the thing starting to move, and the letters to say the names of them, and say, "Oh, it's not normal." But most of the people, they play and they think it's just funny. It's not funny at all, because you open the doors. It's very dangerous. Or you go and you see, "What about my future? Can you tell me about my future?" It's clearly something against God. God knows your future. You don't have to tell your future. You don't have to ask for your future. It's, when you do that, you will lose hope. Because how does that work? How can someone know your future? You go to see a fortune teller. How can they know? Not by themselves. If they know, because they have a relation with a spirit, with an angel. The angel knows more than any human being. It's like when you see a road from, you see a car, let's say it's a car, and you hear, well, it's a strange car. It's coming soon. It's coming. So you hear, and you see the car, and you don't see that here there is another car coming, and they will have an accident. Now, if you are at the top of the mountain, you see both, so you see the events coming, and you can have just a prudence, because you see the things from higher viewpoints. That's exactly how an angel can know your future. Actually, it doesn't know your future, it just sees things happening from a higher viewpoint. What he doesn't know is the mystery of grace. I know a brother who told me that he had a vocation, and his parents were against his vocation. And he had his vocation and he wanted to enter in our community, but the year before, he met a girl, and they had a romance, but he was dealing with his vocation, and his parents were against his vocation, and they went to see a fortune teller. And amazingly, the fortune teller said, "You have a son," without knowing anything. "You have a son. Your son wants to be a priest, but he's with a girl now, so don't worry, he won't be a priest." Well, what he didn't know is the mystery of grace. He could know what would happen without the help of God. But this brother became a priest, actually. So what he didn't know was the mystery of grace. So a fortune teller can be very good for the future. He will tell you your future without grace. And that's the reason why you will always lose hope with the fortune tellers. And it's dangerous. You open the door to something that you don't control. And it can be sometimes the reason why some people are infested. Or you go to really wrong places. It can happen that you go to a house which is really infested, and you get kind of pollution in your soul. Another reason, and I will finish with that, because you're not too concerned by that, I hope, is the stubbornness into sin. Like Judas, for instance, he wasn't possessed until he was really stubborn. You don't want to change, you don't want to change, you don't want to change. One day, you're unable to change. In Rwanda, you have heard about what happened in Rwanda. We receive a lot of people coming from Rwanda and saying incredible stories of violence. Rwanda was in Africa the most evangelized country. 80% of Rwanda was Catholic. And one day, out of a sudden, they cried out on the microphone that you had two ethnies, the Tutsi and the Hutus. They said, "Well, Tutsis, be careful, the Hutus wants to kill you." Or the contrary, it was the... And at this moment, violence calling violence. "I won't let you kill me first. I start killing you." And you had these these people going to Mass every Sunday, who started to kill one another in a horrible way, with machete and tortures, and you can't believe what you hear. Just cutting members, and you say it's not human, it's just the devil here. You have the impression that the whole hell was in Rwanda for a while. And when a priest came, famous priest in France, Daniel Ange, came to see, he said that this country needs massive charters of exorcists. People hasn't done pact with the devil, but through blood they made a pact. Your sin can be such terrible that it can be an open door for possession. Some people can be possessed because of abortions. It happened. Now, if you had an abortion, don't think that you're possessed, but abortion can be an open door, especially when someone is really stubborn and made 1 and 2 and 3 and doesn't care. At this moment, it can be really an open door. So, what are the signs? I'm sorry to speak about all these terrible things, but at least once in your life, at least you will know what it is about, and after we won't speak about it anymore. Different signs. You never have just one sign. In the ritual of the exorcism that was written in 1614, now there is a new one who is really smooth in comparison to the old one who was in Latin. And you had extraordinary signs. In order to perform an exorcist, the person had to speak Latin, for instance. You speak Latin, she answers. It happened, I was mentioning an exorcism that we had in our monastery when she said, I'm the prince of the imagination. The bishop came because we couldn't get rid of her. And the bishop started doing the exorcism in the old style, everything in Latin. And she answered in Latin. He asked questions, she answered. Well, I don't think she knew Latin. So you have signs against, an amazing strength. You have a daughter, a little child. She's 12 years old, and 5 strong men cannot control her. You say, well, there is something here. Or some people walking on the ceiling. But these signs you will never find. So some exorcists have never seen things like that. Most of the time you won't find signs like that. It will be through psychological signs. What makes things more difficult to discern? A psychiatrist here can tell you it's just psychology. I don't see any possession here. In the Bible, you have many people who say it's just epilepsy. It's nothing to do with possession, it's an epilepsy. The signs can be the same. So it's very difficult to discern. You can have an apparent demoniac problem, it's just you're just sick, or you just have malaria, for instance. Or on the contrary, you think it's just a malaria, and behind there is also the devil working. So how can we discern? I would say that a first way to discern, a first clue that something comes from the devil is the disproportion between the context of the person and the effects. When you see something which is without any proportion and ridiculous sometimes, like the guy who brings flour, it's ridiculous. Why does he do that? It's like going to the pigs, making fun of romances, of making fun of humanity, of making fun. Each time you find something which is just bizarre and ridiculous, it could be a sign. And the fact that it happens all of a sudden and disappear also like that. You go to Mass and the priest consecrates the Eucharist, and you just immediately, out of the blue, you just want to curse and Mass is finished, and I was one day I was preaching like that, and I said like that, some of you could be possessed now. And the guy had a tremendous attack, and he was just red, comment on dirait, just stiff. I arrived on him, and I prayed over him, and immediately we put him outside. He was stiff during the conference, so people put him outside, and we prayed over him. Immediately he was well. So, well, it could be malaria. But I was just, it was so amazing. It was so amazing because I just said that some of you can be possessed, and the guy, bam. So, wow. It made a certain effect in the assembly, after you continue your talk. Well, let's continue our talk. So when you have something like that and so radically different, all of a sudden there is no reason at this moment, or this particular, in Cameroon, you had no exorcist, official exorcist. So we went to see the bishop saying, come on, if there is no official exorcist here, where can you find an exorcist in the world? Because your diocese is full of problems. So he decided to have an exorcist, official exorcist for the diocese. and he made a celebration in the cathedral, and I participated to this celebration, and the bishop was reading the ritual, and in the ritual, at the moment, he said, but it was a long text, he said, and I will give you power over the devil, so to cast out the enemies, and he had just finished this sentence that all of a sudden, a woman appeared in the middle of the cathedral, sat down and said, but he cannot he cannot cast me out. And she sat on the floor in the middle of the cathedral during the celebration of the institution of the exorcist. I say, well, that's his first case. So, good job. Go for it. Good luck. Now this man is overwhelmed. But something like that, you couldn't, she didn't know the ritual. She couldn't immediately, this kind of spontaneity, you say something is not natural. It cannot be even just psychological. There is something behind. The most important thing is the evolution of the signs. You can never be sure when you do an exorcism or when you deal with the discernment. You can never be sure that someone is really possessed. You have to see the origin. When did it start and why?
There's a very good book out. Whoever wants to read it after all this, it's all in relation to the presentation. It's called Glimpses of the Devil with Scott Peck, and it talks about exorcism.
Okay.
Some are not successful.
Very good, thank you.
Very interesting.
Thank you. Maybe after, at the pause, you can write the title here. And you look at the origin, and especially where the maximum and the least intensity, things like that. Do these signs come all of a sudden or progressively or different thing? And you always need to have a psychiatrist and a physician with you. You cannot say, I'm absolutely sure I have a charismatic discernment. Well, it's very, very difficult. The best exorcists are always very prudent and saying, a real possession is very rare. So I wanted to speak about that, not to make a big deal of it. It's very rare, and you will probably never deal with it in your family or around you, but it's so widespread in the medias and all this thing that I found it interesting at least to speak about it. Now, what is more interesting for us is to come back to our daily spiritual warfare and to see how we can win. What are our weapons and what must be our normal attitude in spiritual warfare. But the first attitude is to relax, to have a pause in 5 minutes, and after we'll come back. Coming up.